It is I, Tentus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on D20 Modern, the modern take on the 3rd edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Well, where we last left off, we were talking about building your campaign world. Let's talk a little bit about that more now. So we've kind of built our basic world. We need a context for why the players, why the heroes are within this campaign world. In what manner are they being inserted into this world? What place do they fit here? Coming up with the context of where they fit in within this world you're building is going to be very important, because it's going to give you an idea as the type of story that you're going to be telling. And so once you've established that context, you got an idea. You've got a good building place for those first adventures and those big encounters you're going to be putting together. Now, after you have the context of how your players are fitting in, you're going to have to figure out how they're coming together, how they're coming into the adventure itself. Now, there are a number of ways you can do this. The easiest would be to do something like Department 7 or another governmental or special organization that they could be working for. Using one of these agencies gives structure and purpose to your players as to why they are going on the various missions. You don't have to use these, though. You could have it that there's some other reason entirely. What you should really do is talk with your players and figuring out what kind of motivations those players may have. Once you have down all the kind of motivations, you can come up with a basic idea, a basic reasoning of how your players are going to come together and fit into the adventure you're building. You have to basically think of it this way. This first adventure you're going to run is going to be the pilot episode for a TV series. So in the pilot episode, we introduce the characters, we introduce the basic plot line, we introduce the basic idea of what your players are going to be doing, bringing them all together, have them go on that adventure. So using those motivations that those players have, you can effectively tweak the adventure around those motivations, get them in on it. You're not going to want to necessarily write it to those motivations. You're still going to want to write the adventure you want to write and the adventure that you can run. It's just that you're going to have to make those little tweaks that will allow your player to hint into that motivation and want to join together with everyone else, go on that adventure, go on that quest. So, as a GM, it's your job to be everyone else in the world beyond your players. Every single other person that is out there that your players will encounter or not even encounter within that campaign world is you. Every last one of them. And the fact is that all of them are going to have their own lives that do not revolve around the heroes. They will be places in the world that may have never heard from them. Maybe your heroes have done something great in this section of the world. Over here, they haven't heard about them at all. They're not heroes there. They shouldn't get any special treatment. They have to earn their way and build themselves up to get this word out around the world, if that's the kind of thing that they're going to be dealing with. But effectively, these people have their own lives, have their own existence, and the heroes mean nothing to them on the most basic level. If they get involved and there's some kind of mission around these people, maybe then the relationship with the heroes will become important. But until that occurs, and it will be up to your heroes, your players, to develop all these friends and enemies that they're going to meet along the way. The reactions they have with people and the places that they go to will equal out into these heroes' relationships, their friends, their enemies, the villains they're going to face. Which brings us into the next section we want to talk about, villains. Because the fact is, you should have some kind of opposition to your players that is worthy of them and that proves to be a challenge to them. You want to make it feel like you've put something together that they want to face against. Flesh out the character. The villain that you're building should have a vibrant story to them, vibrant reasoning, should have a great description, should be a person in on themselves beyond your heroes. Your heroes are the ones interfering with them, usually not the other way around, though sometimes the heroes could be targeted for various reasons. Depends on your storyline, but effectively, villain still is their own person. So you're going to keep in mind how they're going to interact with your heroes. That's a big thing to start out with. Now, you're also going to want to keep in mind that you don't necessarily want your villain to be dumb. Your villain doesn't need to be stupid. They don't have to be a genius. They will be just as smart as you need them to be cunning enough to be an opponent to your heroes. That's the level you want to put them at. You could also make your villain as evil as you want to be. Have them kill hostages. Have them do really terrible things. If they are evil, they are going to be evil. You shouldn't pussyfoot around there. You shouldn't beat around the bush. Make them terrible. On the other hand, you don't always need to have your villains be evil. You could have a basic good guy that's got an idea of how things should work and what the right thing to do is. And because that's in opposition to what your heroes believe, they end up being the villain in this story. It's still someone trying to do the right thing, maybe for the wrong reasons, maybe in a way that's more dangerous. Whatever reason, this is a person that could be still a good guy, but doing it in a way that makes it a villain in opposition to your heroes. You should also avoid having your villain confront the hero as long as possible. The point in time where you have this confrontation between villain and hero should be when you want it and when it is appropriate to the story. Having it too early doesn't really help you out and kind of opens things up for problems in the storyline. Granted, maybe it fits within the story you're building. If that's the case, then go ahead. But you should be cautious and have this big encounter with the villain when it's appropriate. Maybe that person, they don't know this person is a villain when they first meet him. That might be a good reason to. And the big confrontation isn't until later. Now, your heroes are going to have a wide variety of abilities, but your villain should be able to counter every last one of them. Your villain should have all the resources they need. That's the big way of saying it. They should have everything they need to counter anything that your players may do, to basically foil their abilities. Granted, they could still have the possibility of success, but if someone's really good at fixing things, they should have someone that is excellent at sabotage, placing bombs, something like that, that makes it that their players are forced to use these abilities and possibly fail. They should be ready to counter their abilities. Counter the gunfighters with maybe bulletproof glass, something like that that goes against the hero's advantages and allows the villains to be in a better position. Which leads us to, of course, the villain should always aim to be in a better position. Never fight on the hero's terms. Always fight on their terms. They should do things to weaken, to distract, to overwhelm the heroes before finally going in for that final blow to beat them down. The villain should act like this because it makes them seem more villainous, makes them seem much more of an enemy, a threat, something that needs to be overcome with skill, time, effort, and teamwork. Now, if a villain should be defeated, their plans foiled, it's not always easy to have them escape from here. But if you're planning for this villain to be recurring, plan for a number of ways that that villain could escape. Perhaps at the last second when their plans are finally foiled, minions flood in and they can't get by them. Or some kind of escape tunnel. Something like that. It could be something pretty cliche. The escape tunnel's a little bit James Bond cliche, but you could have it nonetheless. You could come up with some kind of way that your villain could escape to menace your heroes another day. Or again, you could always be switching out your villains and then it won't matter. But usually villains will have some kind of escape plan in place. If they're having some kind of terrible evil scheme, something that could theoretically fail, most of them are smart enough to have some kind of escape in mind. And finally, use moral dilemmas. Moral dilemmas is a great way of escaping, but it's also a great way of testing your players. You could have it that the players get to a point in time where they could attempt to chase after and defeat the villain, possibly foiling its plans right then and there. Or they could save a hostage that the villain has ordered their minions to kill. Ooh, what to do here? To stop the villain and possibly save more people in the long run. Save this hostage now. Moral dilemmas. add to great gameplay, and something that definitely villains, a good villain, would use against their heroes. Use their morals against them. So, that's it for today. I continue talking about building your campaign world. First, I talked about some things you want to develop. Your context. Context of what your players are in the world. Their motivation for going on the adventures within the world. That's a really big one. The fact that every other GM character is going to be their own person, and that you're going to run them, and you should treat them as such. I then dove into villains more, with some information about how you can make your villain more villainous, more alive, much more of a character that your players are going to have to deal with. And your players going against them are going to feel like it is a challenge to overcome and add to the essence of the world you're building. In the next episode, we are going to talk a little bit more about your allies that you can have, and move into, of course, talking about contacts. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you would say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's just for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. I have some great rewards there for supporting me, and it does help to grow and improve the channel. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.